What if loyalty could speak? What if love had teeth and claws, refusing to let go, no matter the darkness? Tonight, you'll hear a story not through human eyes, but through the heart of a dog named Bear, a dog who waited, who fought, and who proved that no chain, no wall, no lie could ever break the bond of a pack. If you're someone who believes in truth, in justice, and in the kind of love that never quits, stay with us until the end. And if you haven't already, subscribe now, so you'll never miss stories that remind us what it truly means to fight for one another. My name is Bear. I don't remember the day I was born, but I remember the first morning I woke up next to Ariel. The sun was spilling through the thin curtains, and her scent warm, clean, and soft like an old blanket wrapped around me. From that moment, I knew this was my pack. Just two of us. She walked on two legs, I on four. She spoke in long winding sounds, while I answered with my breath, my bark, and a tail that refused to sit still. I didn't understand the words on her phone calls, but I understood the beat of her heart, the smell of worry when bills stacked on the table, the sighs that grew sharper after long days. I understood the way she said my name, Bear, come here, with a rhythm already holding a smile. And I understood the silence too, when she pressed her forehead to my neck as if my scent was the only thing keeping her upright. Our apartment was small, tucked down a busy alley. I learned time through sounds, the morning bell of the noodle vendor, the trash truck at noon, the shuffle of children's sandals scraping cement at night. But more than sound, I measured days by the door, that heavy wooden door with the cold metal knob. When Ariel closed it, her scent lingered like smoke in the air. When she opened it, it rushed in like a sudden gust carrying sugar. Some nights, she came home with rain clinging to her jacket and a thin trace of salt on her cheeks. I'd bury my nose in her knees, storing the scent like a secret. She'd smile, even through exhaustion, because my greedy nose was impossible to ignore. That morning felt like any other. Coffee steaming on the table. Her coat folded neatly on the couch. I was waiting under the table, nose aimed at the buttered toast like a hunter ready for crumbs. Then her phone buzzed. A sharp little sound. Her brow furrowed, worry sliding across her face. Yes, I'll come in and explain, she said. Her voice was calm, but the air tasted metallic, like a penny held too long on the tongue. I tilted my head. Explain? To me, life was simpler. You sniff, you bark, you love. No explanations required. I followed her shoes to the door. Before she left, she cupped my face in both hands and kissed the top of my head. Her lips tasted like coffee and butter. Be good, Bear, she whispered. That word good was always my anchor. Then the door shut with a metallic click, and the room emptied of her light. I circled back to my blanket in the corner, curling up, ears tuned to the street. Sane alley sounds, sane life. Until they came. The first thing I heard was shoes. Not the easy shuffle of neighbors, not Ariel's soft heels. These were hard shoes, slamming the pavement like hammers. They stopped at our door. A pounding knock rattled the frame. My tail shot straight up. I barked once, deep and sharp. The knob turned. Their smell rushed in ink, leather gloves, sweat trapped in old fabric. And underneath it all, the heavy odor of authority, sour and stale like garbage. Lids left too long in the sun. 3 men. They stood in the doorway like pillars, voices clipped. Where's the tenant? One asked. I growled low in my throat, planting myself between them and Ariel's world. Just a dog, another muttered, his breath clouded with tobacco. Search anyway, said the tallest. I didn't know what search meant, but I knew violation when I smelled it. Drawers yanked open, papers scattered. Ariel's scent flung across the room like torn feathers. I lunged, barking, but a gloved hand seized my collar. The choke snapped tight around my throat. Air clawed at me. They dragged me out, tied me to the iron railing with a knot short and cruel, as if I were trash to be set aside. I scraped my paws against the cement, throat burning. Inside, the rummaging went on, paper tearing, wood cracking. Every sound stripped her scent thinner. Her coat, her pillow, the half-empty mug still steaming. My world undone in their fists. When they finally stepped out, they barely looked at me. "We'll need her to come with us," one said flatly. The words didn't matter. The sound of her name in their mouths chilled me. Then the door slammed shut, leaving me outside with nothing but a frayed knot and the sun glaring down. But then she appeared, Ariel, rushing down the alley, breathing fast, her scent jagged with panic. Her eyes widened when she saw me tied. "Bear!" My name cracked open the air. I lunged against the rope, gasping. She dropped to her knees, fingers trembling, salt on her skin. It's okay," but it wasn't. Her scent betrayed her. And then, the hard shoes returned. They stepped into the sun, voices sharp. "Ariel Nguyen?" "Yes." Her voice steady, though fear rippled beneath it. They showed her a paper. Words involved, "Come with us, investigation." I didn't understand the words, but I understood the way they wrapped her wrist in their grip. My whole chest tore open with a howl. Ariel looked at me once more. "Stay, Bear. Be good." I screamed my protest in a language no human heard. "Don't go, .. And then she was gone. That night I lay by the sealed door, nose pressed to the gap, drinking in the faint trace of her lavender and smoke. I remembered the first time we met in that cold shelter with its endless cages. Fear was everywhere, a sour blanket draped over straw and rusted bowls. Ariel came in smelling like rain and soap, crouching in front of me without reaching in. She spoke softly, words I didn't know but a tone I understood. Permission to stop being afraid. I edged forward, touched her finger with my nose, tasted. A faint salt. That was the beginning. The beginning of pack. Now, the pack was split. Half of it vanished into doors I couldn't follow. The neighbors whispered in the alley. She was taken in for questioning. Something about money, a fund. She's too gentle for that. Gentle doesn't mean innocent. Their voices carried smells, doubt like dry paper, fear like wet cardboard, curiosity sharp as vinegar. I sat at the threshold, ears twitching, ignoring the children's giggles and the pitying glances. I didn't want pity. I wanted her. The sound of keys on the dish. The smack of her laugh when I knocked into her knees. The mornings in the park, chasing leaves she thought were funnier than balls. All of it meaningless to the world, but everything. To me. Nights fell heavy. Rain rattled the roof. The city smelled of damp iron and restless fear. I dreamed with my eyes open. Ariel in a bright room, strangers asking questions, her heart pounding alone. I scratched grooves into the floor, my body trying to tear through the wall of sleep. Days blurred, food dropped carelessly into a tin, water refilled with impatience. People walked past me, muttering, "Poor dog. What a mess she's in." But then one day, a new scent lingered. Coffee, ink. A man crouched by me, his voice softer than his shoes. "You must be Bear." His smell stirred something faintly familiar, something I had scented before when Ariel spoke into her phone at night. Trust. His name was Quan. He set a bowl of water down, letting me choose whether to drink. Respect has a scent too. I lapped it greedily, and when he placed a strip of meat on his palm, I took it carefully, my head lowered into his knee. It was my way of saying, "I'll listen." Quan spoke words heavy with meanings beyond me. Justice, appeal, evidence. I didn't know these, but I knew their sense. Justice smelled like warm metal worn by honest hands. Appeal smelled like a tablecloth smoothed flat for another try. Evidence smelled like ink drawn in a straight line. He told me Ariel was strong. That was enough. Strong has the scent of bitter coffee, dark, unyielding. Still, the alley was not safe. One night I overheard men muttering words like files, missing page, keep this quiet. One voice laughed. "That dog out there makes me nervous." Their stench curled black around them, gasoline thick. I stepped back, chest tight but teeth bared. I was no longer just a dog waiting at a door. I was a witness. And they knew it. The next morning, sunlight stretched thin across the pavement, tying me to the sky by a single golden thread. I sat tall, ears tuned for the only rhythm that mattered. And then I heard it. Soft shoes, not the hard ones. A measured step, a little pause before each stare. I launched forward, tail whipping like a fan dot, and there she was, Ariel. Hair tied back, eyes deep and wide, thinner now, her scent sharp with hunger in rooms that had no windows. But beneath it all my pack, my home. I crashed into her knees, nearly knocking her over. She laughed through tears, arms wrapping around my neck, my nose buried in her jacket. My wine spilled everything, the waiting, the hunger, the guarding, the fear. She breathed me in as if my fur was the first fresh air she'd had in days. Behind her, the hard shoes clicked again. I snarled, ready. But Ariel pressed her palm gently against my head. "Wait." She stood tall, looking them in the eyes. "I'll go back," she told them, but her voice was aimed at me. "I'll come back." I watched her walk away again, my body vibrating with the memory of her touch. But now the waiting was different. I was no longer lost in the dark. I had her scent fresh. In my fur, her promise burning in my chest. Hardship had a name, but so did hope. And hope, to me, smelled exactly like Ariel. Days blurred together after they took Ariel away again. Morning, noon, nighttime meant nothing without her keys rattling in the dish by the door. The apartment smelled emptier each day, as if her absence had teeth, gnawing away at every corner. I sniffed her pillow until the scent faded into dust. I licked the rim of her chipped mug until all that was left was the bitterness of old coffee. People passed in the alley. Some looked at me with pity, some with annoyance. "That dog is still waiting," they whispered. Yes, I was still waiting. Because waiting is what you do when your pack is missing. But then, something changed. It happened one rainy afternoon, the kind of rain that carries the city's fear down the gutters. I was curled by the sealed door, ears drooping, when a new rhythm of footsteps stopped in front of me. Not the harsh stomp of the uniforms, not the careless shuffle of neighbors. This one was steady, deliberate. The scent hit me next: coffee, ink, and a trace of cigarettes, faint but honest. My head lifted before I even saw him. He crouched low, letting the rain splatter against his shoulders. His eyes studied me like someone who wasn't sure if trust could still exist. "You must be Bear," he said softly. My name in a stranger's mouth usually made my hackles rise. But this man's voice carried something else. Something familiar. The memory clicked. It was a scent I'd noticed before. Faint in the air when Ariel talked on the phone at night. Pacing the apartment, speaking faster, her heartbeat quick but hopeful. This was him. He set down a bowl of water. He didn't push it toward me, didn't force. He waited. Respect has a smell too. I leaned forward, lapped it gratefully, feeling my throat loosen. Then he offered me a strip of meat, palm open. I took it gently, tasting salt and smoke. Afterward, without thinking, I lowered my head onto his knee. That was my way of saying, "I'll listen." "My name's Quan," he said. "I'm Ariel's friend. She's in trouble, but she didn't do what they're saying." His words were heavy, filled with meanings I couldn't understand. False charges, fabricated evidence, corruption. But I understood his scent. Anger simmering, loyalty steady, determination bitter as strong coffee. I knew one thing: he believed her. And believing her meant believing me. From that day, Quan came often. He sat beside me on the wet steps, talking into his phone, arguing with voices I couldn't see. He spread papers across his lap, smelled of ink and urgency. Sometimes he would stop, scratch behind my ears, and whisper, "Hang in there, bear. We'll bring her back." His promises smelled like metal solid, unbending. The neighbors noticed. They stopped muttering about the poor dog and started muttering about maybe she's innocent. Their scents shifted: less vinegar, more cautious hope. A woman left a bowl of rice by the steps. A child handed me half a piece of bread. Small kindnesses, but each one carried the faint smell of belief. And then came the night I truly understood what danger meant. I was half asleep, ears twitching, when voices drifted from the corner of the alley. Men, not Quan. Their smells were sharp and greasy, like smoke from a dying fire. "The file's missing a page," one said. Another spat. "Doesn't matter. Keep it buried." Then laughter, low and cold. And finally, "That dog makes me nervous, always watching." Every muscle in me went tight. They were talking about me. They knew I had seen too much, smelled too much, remembered too much. I pressed back into the shadows, growl stuck in my throat. Fear mixed with defiance in my chest. I was no longer just a dog waiting by the door. I was a witness. Later, when the alley went quiet, I lay awake, paws tucked under me, replaying Quan's voice. "We'll bring her back." I believed him. Because now I wasn't waiting alone. And somewhere out there, Ariel was waiting too. City has a smell when it doesn't trust itself. It's sharp, restless, like iron nails left in the rain. I began to sense it everywhere. In the alley, in the voices of neighbors, even in the way doors slammed faster than before. Suspicion was spreading, and I could smell it the way I smelled fear before a thunderstorm. I heard them whispering. She was framed. Or maybe she really did it. Who knows what people are capable of? Their words were flimsy, but their sense told the truth. Doubt, sour and moldy. Fear, papery and thin. And something else: curiosity, sharp like vinegar. They weren't just talking about Ariel. They were protecting themselves, convincing each other that silence was safer. At night, I lay curled by the taped door of our apartment. My nose pressed into the floorboards. I searched for the fading threads of Ariel's lavender and smoke. But each day, those threads unraveled more, replaced by the chemical sting of adhesive, the stale dust of an empty room. Every breath felt like swallowing loss. Quan came back often. He carried papers that smelled of sweat, ink, and late nights. He muttered words like missing documents, tampered records, cover-up. I didn't know these words, but I could tell they were heavy, each one leaving a bitter trace in the air, like burnt coffee. Sometimes he spoke directly to me, his voice low. "They're hiding something, Bear. If they can twist the story, they can bury her alive in it." I leaned closer, pushing my head into his chest, because I understood the most important part: bury her. My whole body shook with a growl I couldn't stop. Suspicion crept into me too. When footsteps passed the alley, I sniffed hard, memorizing every stranger. The man with the stiff collar who whistled without melody. The woman with the perfume too sweet, masking something rotten. The group of men who stood too long at the corner, speaking in sentences that ended with silence instead of laughter. I studied them the way I'd study the wind before a storm. My nose told me what words couldn't. Lies had their own odor. One evening, I caught the sharp scent of Ariel, not her whole presence, just a trace, like the faintest line of perfume carried by the wind. My heart jolted. I followed it to the end of the alley, where a uniformed officer walked past holding a folder. Her name was on it. I couldn't read, but I knew. Her name has a sound that even paper cannot hide. I barked, loud and wild, lunging against my leash. The man looked down at me, his lips curling. The smell rolling off him was not fear. It was arrogance, thick as grease. "You should put that mutt down," he muttered. His voice was cold, but the scent beneath it was worse. Power, abused and rotting. I barked until my throat tore, until neighbors shouted for me to be quiet. But I couldn't stop. I needed the world to hear. I know something is wrong. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing, claws scraping against concrete, ears twitching at every whisper. The alley was full of secrets. The city was full of lies. And suspicion was no longer just in the air, it was in me. Because I understood now. They weren't just holding Ariel. They were trying to erase her. And if I didn't guard every trace of her scent, every memory, every thread that tied her to this place, then maybe they could not. So I stayed awake, staring into the dark, every sense sharp as broken glass. Waiting for the next step, the next whisper, the next threat. Waiting for the moment when suspicion would turn into something worse. Threats have a smell. Not everyone notices it, but I do. It's sharp, metallic, like the edge of a knife left too long in dirty water. It seeps into the air before danger even arrives. That night, the smell came first. Then the footsteps, not Kwan's steady stride. Not the neighbors shuffling home with groceries. These were boots heavy, deliberate, carrying weight like stones being dropped one after another. 3 men. Uniforms, their eyes blank, their jaws tight. They didn't come to talk. They came to claim. I stiffened, planting myself in front of the taped door, my teeth bared. My chest rumbled with a growl that vibrated through the concrete. The men stopped just short of me. One smirked. The others didn't bother. Their sense told me everything: arrogance, authority, and the lazy confidence of men who think no one can stop them. Still guarding this dump? One said. His voice was casual, but his scent reeked of mockery. Another stepped forward, his hand brushing against the weapon strapped to his hip. The metallic tang of gun oil made my nose sting. He wasn't touching it by accident. He wanted me to see. I barked, loud and sharp, throwing every ounce of fury I had into the sound. My body screamed the truth. This is my territory. This is my pack. You will not pass. The tallest one crouched, lowering himself to my level. His eyes were cold. He didn't smell of fear. He smelled of control. One order, he muttered, almost to himself, and this dog disappears. The words didn't matter. The tone was enough. It was the smell of a threat made real before it even happened. I lunged forward, teeth snapping inches from his hand. The leash jerked me back, choking me, but I didn't stop. Foam flecked my mouth, my throat raw with rage. Behind him, the others laughed, a sound dry and hollow, like bones rattling. One of them kicked at me, his boot grazing my ribs. Pain shot through me, white and sharp. I stumbled but held my ground, tail stiff, teeth gleaming in the half-light. My body was telling them what my voice could not. If you touch her things, if you cross this line, I will bleed before I let you. The smirk returned. Crazy mutt, one said, stepping back. But his eyes lingered too long on the taped door. On Ariel's world. On everything I was trying to protect. When they finally left, the alley felt colder, emptier. Their laughter echoed long after their boots had faded. I lay down, ribs aching where the kick had landed. My breath came in sharp, shallow pulls. The smell of threat still clung to the walls, heavy and sour. I pressed my nose to the tape, to the faintest trace of Ariel's lavender, and I made a promise the only way a dog can, through silence, through watching, through staying alive no matter how many boots tried to crush me. They could threaten. They could mock. They could kick and choke and smirk. But as long as I had breath, they would never take this place without facing me first, because this wasn't just an apartment. This was her scent. This was her life. This was our pack. And a pack is something you defend until your last heartbeat. I thought I had forgotten what hope smelled like. Then, one night, the air shifted. The alley was quiet, too quiet. I heard the creak of a gate, the shuffle of tired shoes. My ears shot up before my eyes even opened. And then the scent, weak, frayed, but unmistakable. Lavender faded under layers of sweat, metal, and salt. My heart slammed against my ribs. Ariel. She appeared in the half-light, thinner, paler. Her jacket hung on her like it no longer belonged. But her eyes, dark, burning, still found me. My leash snapped tight as I hurled forward. Chest heaving, whining, barking. 1,000 sounds that meant the same thing. You're back. You're back. She dropped to her knees before the guards could pull her away. Her hands trembled as they buried themselves in my fur, gripping like I was the last real thing she had left. Her tears soaked my neck. They tasted of salt and metal. "Bear," she whispered, voice breaking. "My boy." I pressed my weight into her, shielding her from the men behind. Their boots clicked closer, their laughter low. The bitter stink of authority filled the alley again. One barked an order. Another reached forward. I spun, teeth flashing, growl ripping out of my chest. I planted myself between them and Ariel, body rigid, ribs screaming from the memory of the last kick. But I didn't care. Every nerve in me lit like fire. If they touched her again, they'd feel my teeth before my body gave out. One of the men raised his boot, smirking. I snapped at the air an inch from his leg, eyes locked, daring him. His smell faltered for the first time. Not fear, not yet, but hesitation. Ariel's hand came to my head, pressing gently. "She-bear," she whispered, though her own scent betrayed her fear. I could feel her pulse hammering through her palm. She wasn't telling me to stop, she was begging me to survive. I stood my ground anyway, shoulders squared, throat raw with snarls. The men muttered, exchanging looks. Finally, one spat on the ground. "Not worth it," he sneered, tugging Ariel by the arm. She stumbled, but her hand slid down my fur until her fingertips brushed the air. A goodbye written in touch. I lunged forward, straining against the leash, the rope biting my throat until stars swam in my eyes. She looked back once, just once. Her face was pale, her body frail, but her gaze was fire. In that look, she wasn't asking me to sit. She was asking me to fight. When the men dragged her away, her scent trailed after them, faint, battered, but alive. I dropped to the ground, chest heaving, throat raw. Pain buzzed in my ribs, my lungs, but I was still there. And so was she. That night I curled in front of the taped door, every muscle aching. The alley reeked of threat and violence. But beneath it, buried deep, was the lingering warmth of Ariel's hands, her tears, her whispered promise. For the first time in weeks, I closed my eyes and let exhaustion pull me under. Because now I knew something certain. They could take her away. They could hurt her. They could lie and kick and sneer, but they could not break us. Not while I could still stand, still breathe, still protect, because Ariel was my pack. And pack is not abandoned, not ever. Night fell heavy after they dragged her away again. The alley was damp, the tape across our door sagging under the weight of the rain. But her scent still clung to me, on my fur, in the salt of her tears pressed against my neck, in the warmth of her trembling hands. I curled into that memory like it was a blanket. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her fingers buried in my coat. Every time I breathed, I tasted her sorrow. And then one night, she returned. Not for long. Not free, but she was there. The guards brought her back to the apartment, maybe to search again, maybe to sign something. I didn't care why. All I saw was her. She looked smaller than before, swallowed by clothes that no longer fit. Her face drawn, her skin carrying the bitter stench of locked rooms with no sunlight. But when she saw me, her shoulders dropped. For the first time in weeks, her scent shifted. The fear was still there, sharp and cold, but beneath it was something warmer, relief. I rushed to her, claws scraping concrete, leash snapping taut. She knelt instantly, arms circling me, pulling me in so tightly I could feel the beat of her heart hammering against my chest. It was fast, uneven, but it was there. I pressed my muzzle to her ribs, inhaling deeply. Her smell was cracked, bruised, but it was hers. I whined low, telling her everything I couldn't say. I never stopped waiting. I never stopped guarding. You're still mine. Her tears came quietly this time, sliding down her cheeks, soaking into my fur. Bear, she whispered, voice raw. I'm so sorry. She buried her face against me, and for a moment, the world shrank down to just us. Dog and the girl, the pack reunited. I felt her fingers tremble as they traced the lines of my face. She lingered at the scar on my rib where the boot had landed. Her breath hitched. I nudged her hand as if to say, don't be sad. I'd take 1,000 kicks if it meant I could still protect you. The guards shifted impatiently behind us, their shoes tapping against the floor. Their scent was sour with annoyance. One barked an order. Ariel flinched, her grip tightening. I growled, low and dangerous, making sure they heard. If they wanted her, they'd have to step through me first. She leaned closer, whispering into my ear, stay strong, my boy. We'll get through this. Her voice broke, but the promise inside it was steady. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink into me like rain soaking dry earth. They pulled her away again, but not before she pressed her forehead to mine, just for a second. It was enough. That one touch anchored me more than food, more than sleep. The door slammed shut and her scent thinned once more. I curled back on the cold floor. My chest ached, my ribs sore, my throat raw. But none of it mattered, because in that fleeting closeness, in that fragile embrace, we had reminded each other of the truth. We were still a pack. And no matter how much they tried to break us, no leash, no wall, no threat could erase that. The day justice arrived. I smelled it before I heard it. It wasn't lavender or coffee or the bitter sting of fear. Justice had its own scent, sharp like fresh ink, heavy like warm metal, clean in a way that cut through weeks of rot. It filled the air one morning when voices gathered at the end of the alley. Neighbors stood outside, whispering. Their scents were different now, less vinegar, more cautious hope. I pricked my ears, tail stiff. Words drifted down the street. They cleared her name. She didn't do it. They found the real thief. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the sound of them. Relief, vindication, a wall. Breaking. Then, footsteps. Not the stomping boots. Not the lazy shuffle of pity. These were quick, light, purposeful. My nose caught it before my eyes did. Smoke, lavender, salt. Ariel, she came into view, not dragged this time, not shackled by hands. She walked. She was thinner, her shoulders hunched, but her head was lifted. People clapped. Some called her name. But I didn't hear them. I only heard the sound her heartbeat made when it cinched with mine. I exploded forward, claws scraping the ground, tail whipping like a storm. My bark split the air, desperate, wild, joyous. And then I was on her, leaping, pressing into her chest. Knocking her back a step, her arms wrapped around me. Tight, fierce, like she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. Her laugh cracked, spilling into a sob, and her tears ran warm down my fur. Bear, she whispered, burying her face in my neck. We're okay now. Behind us, voices still churned. Some angry, some relieved, some already. Twisting the story into something smaller, safer. But none of it mattered. Because in that moment, the pack was whole again. The men who once sneered and kicked now looked down, their sense soured with shame. Their arrogance evaporated under the heat of truth. Quan stood nearby, eyes tired but steady, his scent humming with satisfaction. He had fought for her when she couldn't fight. For us, I pressed my muzzle to Ariel's chest, inhaling deep. The fear was still there, faint and bruised. But it was layered now with something stronger. Freedom, survival, the kind of strength you only smell in someone who has walked through fire and come out the other side. As we stood in the sunlight, the tape was ripped from our door. The sound, sharp tearing, was the sweetest thing I'd ever heard. The door swung open. Inside, the air was stale, but it still carried her scent, buried under dust. We stepped through together. This was no longer just an apartment. It was proof. Proof that waiting mattered. Proof that loyalty was not wasted. Proof that no matter how deep they tried to bury her, the truth had claws of its own. I lay down across the threshold, chest against the floor, paws stretched wide, my eyes closed, my ears still sharp. I didn't need to guard as fiercely now, but habit made me stay ready. Because justice might have come, but scars leave their own shadows. And if anyone dared try again, if boots returned, if threats crept back into the alley, I would already be there, standing, teeth bared. For now, though, Ariel was beside me. My pack was whole, and the world, for one fleeting, perfect moment, smelled clean. The nights are different now. They no longer carry the sour sting of fear or the hollow echo of boots in the alley. Instead, they are filled with the soft rhythm of Ariel's breathing as she sleeps, the rise and fall of her chest steady beside me. I curl at the foot of her bed, head resting on my paws, ears still half open, guarding, always guarding. Sometimes she wakes in the middle of the night, breath catching like she's still in that dark room they kept her in. When that happens, I climb up, pressing my weight against her side until her hand finds my fur. She buries her face in my neck, inhaling deep. My scent grounds her the way hers anchors me. Little by little, her heartbeat slows, her shoulders loosen, and sleep returns. Neighbors have stopped whispering. Now they nod when they see us walk past. Children reach out to pat my head. Old women cluck their tongues and say, "That dog never gave up." They don't know how true that is. Quan still visits. His scent carries exhaustion, but also something. Lighter satisfaction, maybe even pride. When he scratches my ears, I let my tail thump against the floor in thanks. He fought for her when my teeth and growls weren't enough. In my world, that makes him part of the pack too. The apartment has changed. Papers are gone, shelves rearranged, dust swept away. But Ariel's laughter has returned, faint at first, then stronger, like a bird relearning its song. Every time she laughs, my chest expands as if I'd been waiting my whole life for that sound. We walk in the park again. The leaves skitter across the pavement, and I chase them with reckless joy. Ariel shakes her head, smiling, and says, "Still the same silly boy." But her smile doesn't hide the tears in her eyes. I nudge her hand with my nose until she strokes my head, and the sadness slips away. Sometimes when she stops to rest on a bench, she talks to me. Not just words, but secrets, fears of what almost happened, dreams of what comes next. I don't understand every word, but I understand the weight of them, and the way her scent lightens as she speaks. She trusts me with everything, and I guard her trust more fiercely than any door, because trust is what kept me alive. Trust is what kept her fighting. Trust is the thread that no blade, no boot, no lie could sever. Now, as I lie in the doorway at night, watching the moonlight spill across our floor, I know one truth clearer than any. They tried to take her away. They tried to bury her story, to break her spirit, to scatter our pack. But they failed. Because love has teeth. Because loyalty has claws. Because a dog never abandons his pack. I am bare. I waited. I fought. I protected. And in the end, Ariel came home. Our pack is whole again. And the world, for once, smells like hope. Bear's story reminds us of something simple, yet unshakable. Trust can be tested, broken, even buried beneath fear and lies, but it can also be reborn. Because love waits, love protects, and love always finds its way home. If this story touched you, let it stay with you. And if you want more stories that remind us of hope, resilience, and the bonds that make us human, even through the eyes of a dog, hit that subscribe button and join us for the next yo.